Hello, everyone. It is I, Dark Symphony 7. Sorry, I wanted to check. This is Dark Symphony 777 with a kind of a video on a lark. Here's the thing. I'm recording this like midnight. I am incredibly tired. I don't have the time to actually do a review of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And so I decided for a lark, I'm just gonna make like an impromptu tier list of like a bunch of original characters I come across over the course of my reviews, and I'm going to rank them. I don't know how I'm gonna rank them. I guess I'm gonna rank them based on how much I like them or how much they fit. This is such an impromptu thing because I wanted to at least do something, and I was kind of goaded by a certain someone. You know who you are. But I'm not going to be doing every single review. This whole list is just the characters from the Fallout Equestria characters, except for one. All of this are all from the Shadow Chaser series. All of these guys. And then the rest of the last 10 are from Total Alternate Island. I wanted to do these three because these are the ones that had the most OCs to talk about. And I figured it makes sense to just throw these out of the way. I'm gonna at least try and talk a little bit about each OC as best I can, at least a little bit. But I want to try and go through this as fast as possible. So I guess a good OC would be someone who fits into the story, into the world already created. So like if you're gonna do an OC for like My Little Pony, like these guys, it's like how well would they fit in that world, in that scenario, how everything fits. And we're basically just gonna start real strong with Puppy Smiles, the main character of Pink Eyes. She's an S tier. Let me I completely forgot to add this. Okay. Yeah, Puppy Smiles is an S tier OC. She bucks all trends, every single idea of what a good character is. She bucks that trend. Why? Well, let's see. She has a does she have a character arc? No, because she's dead. Does she grow as a character? No, because she's dead. Does she serve any purpose in the story? Yeah, she's the main character. So here's the thing with Puppy Smiles. At the very start of Pink Eyes, the very first thing we find out about her is she's dead. She dies. This happens the very, very beginning of Fallout Equestria Pink Eyes. And it's literally our journey to find out was like, what the hell is specifically wrong with her? We know something's up with her because when she dies, you know, the missiles are about to release the pink mist into Canterlot and basically kill Celestia and Luna. Well, mainly Luna, but Celestia dies too because of the exposure. And then she wakes up about 200 years later, like 2 centuries later. So everyone she knows is dead. She basically acts like a fragmented memory. She doesn't really grow as a character. She doesn't develop as a character because her mindset and her memories are locked into that everything up to the end, to what happened in the first chapter. So basically, she's a little girl. She had an attention deficit. She wanted to see her mom because her mom was going to stay behind, and then everyone died, and then she was going to go visit her mom, and then everyone died, and then she died, and the story is just like, oh, I didn't get to visit my mom, and then she just goes down to Long 52, and everyone's completely afraid of her because like, well, you shoot her, and then a bunch of pink mist kind of ruptures out of her, and she's like completely unaware. It's like, that's stupid. She even does like a lot of childlike stuff. Like she's unaware. Like when she destroys an entire fortress of bad guys, she doesn't even realize. Like she doesn't even understand the ramifications of what she did. She just like, ooh, pretty lights. But the thing with Puppy Smiles is it works because the whole point of Puppy Smiles as a character is she's supposed to be a symbol. The symbol of what Equestria used to be before the missile strikes, before all the mega spells and all that. And that inspires a lot of people to try and be better people, unite, become friends, do all that jazz. Yes, so in that instance, she is a good character. Oh, before I continue, I bet it's a way too late to say this, but there will be spoilers for the stories. Yes, Puppy Smiles does not fit the traditional definition of a main character because Pink Eyes, she is the main character of Pink Eyes, but as a character study of trying to execute a one-dimensional protagonist really well, it deserves she deserves the S rank for just the sheer creativity that goes into this character. And then it kind of goes down from here, especially with the rest of the Fallout crews. Let's see. Zenith D. She's just nothing to the story overall. Like she doesn't really. She's there specifically for a specific arc when they visit the Ramshackle zebra village in like below the ruins of Canterlot, and that's it. That's pretty much the biggest extent of her character. She's there just at least show up and at least try and get the zebras to try and calm down to let them go into Canterlot. That's it. That's it. Let's just get Soul AI and Henrietta. Soul AI is okay. Like he's a pragmatic robot who basically opposes. He's technically the closest thing Pink Eyes has to an antagonist. In that he's really pragmatic. He sees Puppy Smiles as like someone who's threatening his world order. However, he kind of starts becoming afraid of Puppy Smiles because he's like, I can't kill you. I cannot kill you. And they kind of come at odds 3 different times to the point where Sola is not even beaten. He just gives up. He's like, I can't kill you. It's like, can you just leave me alone? It's like, be friends with Pinky AI. Hi. Can you leave me alone now? Yes. Okay, I'm gonna be friends with this AI that's based off Pinkie Pie. Ching. And that's it. But he doesn't really have a defining thing. He's just really pragmatic, and he's kind of just in the way. So that's why he's not really a villain. He's more of an antagonist because he's like, it's very obvious that he's just trying to do his own thing, and that's it. Henrietta, it's kind of the same way, but she gets a D rank. The only defining thing about it is like she kind of becomes friends with Puppy Smiles, and thus when everyone kind of realizes that Puppy Smiles, in order for all this to end, Puppy Smiles has to realize that she has to pass away. Henrietta's like, nah, I don't want that because she's my friend. And this is more of a case of like too little, too late. Henrietta only gets the character development at the very end. I mean, there is a very hilarious moment referencing Spaceballs where Puppy Smiles thinks that she killed her mom, and Henrietta's trying to cheer her up, and so she kind of pretends to be. So she like kind of like talks to Puppy Smiles, and everyone like looking at someone catches her is like, and then we got like the typical like Darth Helmet response. It's like, why didn't you tell me? It's like, did you see anything? No, I wasn't seeing you play with the Puppy Smiles as a creepy puppeteer. Good. But yeah, the thing is, like all of Henrietta's character development happens at the very end of the story. And it's just, if Henrietta kind of followed Puppy Smiles, or at least showed up a little bit more. Because she only shows up, just like Sol Leia, 3 times. It's not really much of anything. No, I think Henrietta shows up 4 times. No, it is 3. It's with the Chimera, and then with she's under control by Sol Leia, or Sol OS. I can't remember if it was AI or OS. And then at the end where no, and then at the attack with between the Steel Hooves Ranger, the Applejacks Rangers, and the Steel Hooves things. But that's it. But she's just there. She's just really there, or just really there for the most part. Let's move on to the other characters from Fallout Equestria. Let's talk with Little Pip. Oh boy. Little Pip's the scene. Now, I bet you're wondering, why don't I have Red Eye? There are some characters that are kind of like very much a gray area, and I think, and since Red Eye is exclusively based off an actual Fallout character named Red Eye, and pretty much acts the same way, I decided not to add Red Eye. But if you did, Red Eye would probably be a C too. No, Red Eye would be a D. His main problem is he just does not show enough in the story. But Little Pip's kind of the same thing. She's based off the main character of Fallout 3, and she's just not as interesting as Puppy Smiles. She spends so much time knocked out. She doesn't really have any agency in the home story. Like, a lot of the decisions in the story are dictated by everyone else. And she's kind of a very flat character. I wouldn't call her something like a Mary Sue, because he's like, they have the author's doing something with her, and she's not perfect. She's very one-dimensional. Like, she has the whole thing with homage, and she's you can at least see something. The author's actually trying to do something with her. The problem is, again, a lot of the major decisions for like the major story beats and the major plot lines are not dictated by her. However, that kind of caused the problem of the fact that she's specifically based off the player character, and the player character would do stuff like this. That's how Fallout works. It's really just a very, very bad mess over, something I mentioned in the Fallout Equestria story review. How do you quantify splitting the character versus who she's based off? Because it's very much that the author used the player character for Fallout 3 as the blueprint for Little Pip, and try to at least do something with her. It just wasn't enough. That's why Little Pip is C rank. Let's see, which one's the worst one? Velvet, Remedy, and Deadlock and Deadshot can both. Velvet and Deadshot can go in B tier. There we go. They're okay characters. We do get plenty of character development for them, but again, this kind of similar to the Little Pip. This kind of becomes the fact that they're kind of attached as companions, and they don't really have a full character arc. They do have character development, like with Remedy, being the element of kindness, and then realizing that sometimes people have to die, and her kind of realizing that sometimes letting him die is the best kindness because they're not suffering anymore. And Deadshot having to go through his family. However, the problem with Deadshot's whole arc is his major arc, just like Henrietta, that happens at the very end of the story. We do get bits and pieces of it with like the whole Dashite thing, because he believed in what Rainbow Dash does. I think with Deadshot it was a little too late. While with Velvet, it just once she starts to realize that she has to fight back, she has to like the idea of death is sometimes can be used as kindness because it prevents suffering. She doesn't really grow anymore. It's just once she reaches that point, she just stagnates, and thus she completely stagnates as a character in the second half of the story, which is why she's a B rank. If not for that, I probably would have bumped her to like barely an A rank. But it is what it is. Steel Hooves, A rank. He's not the best. He is a really well written character. He has a very good character arc. He was dating Applejack, who was the minister of one of the ministries. She was the director of one of the ministries. We had a lot of backstory with him being actually very racist towards the zebra kind, which was like a big thing with him in Zenith. Him becoming a counter adult and melding to his armor, and him slowly getting to know Zenith and kind of warming up to her, and him being like the guy who teaches a lot of the lessons in the story. He's also the main guy who plans where they go and how they go about things. And even when he dies, it's actually a truly shocking moment. And in fact, I actually thought he was going to die at like the very end, in like the final battle. So it was a genuine surprise when I read the part where he dies, because it just came out of nowhere, but also kind of fits, because how else are you gonna kill the guy if not by like complete surprise? So it just fit. It does fit, and they do like a little mini arc where they kind of honor him, and they even leave like the statuette of Applejack on his grave as like a memoriam. And he inspired the Rangers, the group he was a part of, to become better people, truly honor the name of Applejack again. He was just a really, really worthwhile character arc. He was a very good character. His introduction in the story was badass. Literally just firing a bunch of missiles at an Alicorn. And it was actually pretty cool. And he grew on me. It's like, I knew I knew even when I first introduced him and I found out about his character, I knew there was only like one way to end it, and he had to die. It just happened sooner to my expected. So let's move on to the Shadow Chasers. There's a bunch of characters. Oh boy. Oh, let's just get the easy one out of the way, Bruno. The two best characters in the Shadow Chaser series are Bruno von Klein from Tournament of Shadows, and where is she? Nicole from Torment. Nicole Bivens, I believe her full name is. So let's start with Bruno von Klein. He has a very entertaining character. His whole shtick is that he constantly quotes Lewis Carroll books, specifically Alice in Wonderland. He's probably the closest thing Tournament of Shadows has to a protagonist, because a large part of the story kind of revolves around him. Despite, him not being the main overall character, he was the one who did have the last duel in that story. He dueled Pegasus, the ghost of Pegasus, to let Pegasus move on to the afterlife. A big part of the story is him finding Pegasus with Alice in Despairland. He's a very entertaining character, and it's kind of saying something when a lot of the characters in the Shadow Chasers, which is probably my biggest net complaint over the entire series, is a lot of the characters are very flat. There are some good pieces here and there, and Bruno is the best one. Nicole is probably I would say the face of the Shadow Chaser series. She's the next Tournament of Shadows. Tournament was my favorite of the Shadow Chasers, and Nicole actually was a big part of that. I really loved her backstory of being this very, very buff woman who likes to embrace her softer side, but also wants to donate and do all these things, and not afraid to reveal that she's buff. She is also the secondary protagonist, one of the two main protagonists of the new series, the new sub-series is going on. So it's kind of safe to say that Nicole has kind of become the face of the Shadow Chaser series. She is without a doubt like, probably the most recognizable to me, because she has the Amazonians. They're doing this entire arc based off Sam Kubert, who Nicole works for. Hence why Nicole's kind of like a big part of this little sub series, because she's the one who's part of the organization. And she's just a very entertaining, very gruffy character. An understated part of her character is actually in Tournament of Shadows, that whenever she summoned, that she was kind of wondering why the Amazonians had a completely different design to them when she summoned them, and that's how she sensed something was going on, because the Amazonians were actually used as a very, very clever foreshadowing device behind something bad going to happen during the tournament. So she is a great character. She's still growing as a character now, especially now that she's the face of the series. And the fact that now in the new series, there's not really any dueling going on. It's more character focused instead of focusing on the dueling, which I think was another complaint I had about the series as a whole. Just way too much dueling. Now we finally get to see who she is. Who knows? Nicole may actually make it to S tier, depending on if I ever review this sub-series and kind of see what she and how the author writes her. So you never know. Let's do rapid fire for next characters. Ember is C. Sergio is C. Do I have Jinx? Wait, do I have Jinx? I don't think I have Jinx. I do not have Jinx. Jinx. Jinx is C, and Gears is C. These are the main characters of the first two stories. You know what? Let's put Heavy. Let's put Heavy in. Let's just get most of these guys out of the way. Because a lot of these characters are completely uninteresting. Jalal, and let's say Jalal, Terramandra. Let's just get these all out of the way. Now, wait. Yeah. I think that's it. All these guys are completely uninteresting. I mean, they all have character quirks and stories behind them. They're by and large very uninteresting. Probably the most interesting of them is Heavy Na, with her kind of going more into her little character arc in the second story. But it's nothing new. It's nothing really well executed. It's alright. Joel gets some time, but the problem is he's pretty much seen as like a mythical figure, so it makes sense why the author decided not to really explore him in detail, because that's actually part of his mystique. He's supposed to be like this mysterious, good, ultra good guy, leader of the organization. Terramandra is like a kind of generic. Depend, very generic. Besides like his species, but that's more his species than him as a character. He's just a very stereotypical mob boss. Jinx had a neat character arc where she relied on luck very much, and it kind of bit her in the end, and so that kind of made her question herself. However, that didn't really come into play that much, because the character arc, that specific quirk thing, only happened at the very end. Gears had a whole backstory with like the worms, and Ember was okay. Granted, she kind of grew on me, but and Chichiro is probably Mr. Generic. Like, there's nothing. He's just a generic guy. There's nothing really interesting about him. Hence why they're all here. Let's get more C ranks because we gotta go through these as fast as I can. Uninteresting and slightly more interesting, but still generic. Lorelai, she's okay. And we're just trying to. Lorelai's just a generic guy. Tiberius, no. I'm honestly just trying to get the guy. I'm gonna get the ones that don't really need to be talked about. Dante, no, Dante's a D tier. Dante, Ophelia, Jeb. Honestly, the Boston Shadow Chasers group. These three, they're the worst. They're the worst characters. These three are the worst characters. There's just, I think these guys had the most potential to be the most creative characters. The problem is, it's technically the nadir of the issues I had with the Shadow Chasers. Is the fact it focuses so much on the dueling and not enough on the character growth. And these three literally suffer the most for it. Like, Ophelia has something with her species. There's basically Ophelia's like half a demon that specializes in wanting to get attention, so they do very risky stuff to put people in danger, specifically so they can get like woot clout and stuff like that. Jeb, Jeb is just a writer, and Dante is just a guy. Even Chirchio has something more than him. This guy's just really, really uninteresting. Let's see, anything else? Sophia and Philip are probably the yeah. These two are by and large just there. There we go. Yeah, these two are by and large. I mean, they are technically the two duels. There is a very large story thread with like conspiracies, and then I honestly think these two would have been better if the story focused on them like as a whole. But they play despite technically these two are the main characters of Conspiracy. Technically, but they don't show up, like, they only show up in like half the story. I thought the whole point of Conspiracy was to focus on the group as a whole, but it's just I think that's a problem with Conspiracy. There's no unifying character as the whole. I mean, except for Sophia and maybe Francis. And Francis had that whole thing. Francis had that whole thing with Shiva. Not really. And I guess Carl. Yeah, let's put Dugan in here too. Dugan's okay. He does get some time to shine in the fourth what was the name of that story? The one that after Torment. The Boston team, where he's kind of acts as like the author's notes and the end notes. They give you like information, stuff like that. And he's all right. Now we can actually talk about the interesting characters, the actual interesting characters besides Bruno and Nicole. Leorin. Leorin is okay. He has that mysterious background of the fact that he did something so bad that he wanted to redeem himself and he died and actually lost his memory, and the whole idea is that he keeps dying and resurrecting, and he doesn't know why he's resurrecting and doesn't know why he's dying, because apparently whenever he died, he always loses memory. It was an interesting take on the whole amnesiac hero, because he didn't lose he didn't lose his memory like some magic sort of thing. It's just he was repenting so hard, and because of how his curse and repenting worked, he kind of slow. It's implied that he slowly lost his memory over time before he eventually got cursed, and it just wiped itself out. Now he's trying to figure everything out. He had a good character arc. He was the main character of Torment. He probably would have been the best character, not for Nicole. and Leorin was an okay character. Carl, oh boy, we have to talk about this guy. Carl, I did not like in Torment. However, Conspiracy completely redeemed this guy. He had a nice little character arc. Well, let me put Tiberius. I love Tiberius when I talk about Carl. Carl had a big part in Conspiracy. He was pretty much next to Sophia and Philip, the main character. He had a lot of time to shine. A lot of time to shine. He had a lot of entertaining moments. And he really grew on you. Like, if you read Torment and then you read Conspiracy and you look at Carl, it's like, this is completely different characters. He grows up, he kind of becomes something of a loner-esque character, more because he's trying to do his own thing whilst, he doesn't want to get too attached to the company because he still has work, because he has his job and wants to go to school and all that. But he does become a good side character. Kenshin! Oh, boy! What a bunch of missed opportunities. I love Kenshin. I love Kenshin as a concept. She is basically she's a Super Nintendo that's been kind of taken care of so much that it gains sentience and therefore gains spirit. She's basically a Tsukuyomi. And that's actually really cool in that fact that she kind of constantly references other video games. And then there's a whole backstory where she actually befriended Yugimoto to fight her owner, who was a very twisted guy, which kind of leads me into the whole problem in the fact that she only appears in Tournament of Shadows. I know she debuted in another story. However, that story is not completed, and I'm probably never going to review it. But I think I still wish someday we'll get like the story that focuses on Kenshin, because I honestly think Kenshin could be a great original character if we get the context of her befriending Yugi and fighting her master. That would actually be a very great concept, like the modern day Yugi versus basically her master, who's based off season 0 Yami. That would actually be a very, very cool concept for a story in like various games and all that. That would be a completely batshit insane story, and I honestly wish we get that. That's probably the saddest thing, is the fact that we don't have that. It's kind of sad. Jaylee, the second best villain after Levestus. He's not really any reason. He's kind of. The thing is, like, the story makes it very clear you can't really take him seriously, because the whole point of the story, Ascension, that's the story, is the fact he's like completely bitten off more than you. It's like, I'm going to completely take out Satan. It's like, you do realize Satan's like knows very much ahead of time. He knows what you're doing. Like, I'm going to do it anyway. It's like part of his whole plan is like he's trying to upend how hell works. The problem is, it's pretty much laid out in black and white. All of hell knows what he's doing, and it's like, well, you know you're gonna fail. We're just gonna laugh at you when you finally realize you don't go. And so instead he's just this over the top, like a guy who knows he's like the generic villain, and he like relishes in it. Like, I'm gonna be the best generic villain possible. Like, you do realize no one can take you seriously, right? It's like, that's not the point. I'm gonna do it anyway. Watch my Palpatine impression. Unlimited power. So yeah. However, that does not stop Levestus from being the best villain. He was the best build-up. He was the most threatening. The fact that the first thing he did, he managed to outsmart. The only reason he lost was because Kenshin in Tournament Shadows literally sacrificed himself. He thought of everything. And the fact that he backed up all his words, the fact that his deck was Exodia, like a bunch of different Exodia conditions, including a completely original one. The fact that he took down everyone in like a very, very convincing duel. The final duel against Levestis between him, Ember, Nicole, Bruno, and Ace. I don't even know where Ace is. Oh, yeah. Ace ain't on here. Is bar none the best written duel in across any of the Shadow Chaser stories for how well written it is. I left Ace out because I know Ace is kind of important in Tournament of Shadows. However, she does have her own single story, Risen Nemesis, so I'm not gonna count her there until I read Risen Nemesis. So she's out. She's not here yet. But yeah, Levistus is a really, really great character. He's basically an Archduke of Hell who literally who was so threatening to Satan that Satan literally had to block him in the middle of a several 100-mile ice block, still conscious, and with just his mind working to single across his area of hell to basically just think you're still ruling hell, but it's like I can't do anything. So you can do no. You're still ruling hell. You're just gonna rule it in like a middle of a very, very impossible to melt ice block. So have fun. And the fact that he comes the closest to actually winning, and he's easily like he's like the villain you actually take the most seriously because he actually what a lot of people like about villains is villains that back up what they're saying. And that's the thing with Levestis. Everything he does, he backs up immensely. Again, he only loses because Kenshin sacrifices herself, which is something he simply was not expecting. He was not expecting Kenshin to what Kenshin did is she literally managed to use the last of her power to sneak behind Levestis and put him in a headlock because Levestis realized yeah, I'm just gonna surrender and run away because that's actually very clever in a Yu-Gi-Oh context because in an official duel you can actually surrender whenever you want. So in essence, by surrendering, he can get away and try and replan everything. So Kenshin actually keeping him in place so that way he can take the hit and go back to hell. That was actually a pretty epic moment. Granted, the fact that he lost to like a god made the Egyptian god made of ice cream and dessert, kind of weird. But we take those. Let's see. Francis, let's put you right here. He's a well-written character. He has the whole berserker thing with like his shoulder tattoo actually has like two symbols like the moon and the sun, and so he enters a berserk state once like the sun is eclipsed, and he kind of becomes uncontrollable. He has the whole thing. He has a big part of the specific plot when it comes to like the interdimensional characters like BB Hood and Shiva, especially. Like he has this whole thing with Shiva that I really, really liked. And overall, he was just a main interesting character. I know I'm repeating myself, but thankfully, we had the last one, Antithesis, because I really want to move out to the Total Alternate Island crew. But because these 10 are gonna be the most interesting to talk about. Antithesis, he was a great villain. I like the fact that his whole plan was shrouded in like conspiracy and stuff like that. He was a very mysterious character who basically was like this. Basically, in the Shadow Chasers universe, there are these robots that are basically meant to maintain order, no matter what. So it's like something happens that could damage the interdimensional boundaries. They're gonna send. They're gonna kill whoever is possible, and then just leave. He went to do that, but he got damaged in the process. And when he was repairing himself, the parts that he was repairing himself with were actually cursed and slowly turned him and corrupted him, his hard wiring, so he gained sentience. He started questioning everything about like this idea of order, and so he thought the only ideal way of establishing order is a world full of chaos. He was a very well done character, especially since he really only appears at like the very end. He's basically what all the other villains except for Levestus should have done, is just waited. The only thing is, I really wish he should have been the final duel instead of that crappy other duel that happened that just completely out of nowhere. But yeah, he's okay. But now we move on to a final 10 characters. The Total Alternate Island crew. I love Total Alternate Island. I love talking about. I've been wanting to talk about these characters. Now I can. Let's get the three uninteresting ones out of the way. No, the 4 uninteresting ones. Paula, Mara, Grayson, and where is he? And Marcus. So, why am I putting these 4 characters here? They are the least important original characters of Total Alternate Island. Paula, Mara, and Grayson are basically OC family members of 3 of the characters. Paula is related to Lindsay, Mara is related to Harold, and Grayson is related to Duncan. However, they're not. The problem is they're not important to the story. Like the only intern that's actually important to the story is Michael, because his story is directly tied into Gwen being Gwen's brother, but also a big part of the plot in Total Alternate Island is Michael, Michael. Hence why he's not there. They do have character moments with their siblings, and they do help out with their specific arcs, like the whole thing with Paula being incredibly protective of Lindsay from Cody, because Lindsay's not exactly the smartest person, and thus she's worried that Cody might take advantage of her. But then warms up to him when he realizes that Cody's not going to do anything to Lindsay. And of course, we got Mara kind of warming up to Harold's eccentricities, and then Grayson's kind of there. He's kind of like the most flat one. Like his whole thing is like he's a cop, and his whole family's cops except for Duncan. There, that. And also, Marcus here. Marcus is a repairman. He's basically like a guy who likes to tinker and stuff. The problem is he's the only one who's like completely unimportant to like everything. Is like even his elimination is just like throwaway. Like when it gets eliminated, it's like, oh, you're eliminated. I was like, okay, gone. And you can't really like he's really just there to make up the numbers. My guess is the author kind of ran out of ideas, like specific things for him specifically to do, and thus just made Marcus like the guy, like the cannon fodder guy, which is fine. But now we have more interesting characters. Let's actually move up to the sea. Jake is a prankster. Basically, his whole thing is that he tries to act cute. He really likes pranking Chris and Shep. That's actually a big thing with his characters. Like, every time when Chris and Chef try and do something to torture the players, Jake's like, and basically they wake up with like being pranked, like either like pink balled, covered in paint, covered in tar and feathers, or just some kind of thing. He does have a sort of honor code, like he will only prank people who actually deserve it. Hence why he mainly pranks Chris and Jeff, because they completely deserve it because they're sociopaths. And after a while, he starts pranking both Heather and Courtney because they're like the two main antagonists of this story. Courtney more so once we get to the merge, because Heather kind of around the merge, Heather starts getting like a kind of becoming a good guy, and overall, that makes is not really the thing. It's just like Marcus, he's not really doing a bunch of stuff. Like he's not really part of the overall structure of the main plot of Total Alternate Island. When it comes to like the main overall plot of that story, it's centered around Gwen, Heather, Laura, Ezekiel, and Courtney. No, it's centered and Michael. It's centered around those 6 characters. And Jake doesn't really fit anywhere. Kind of like Marcus. The thing is, I put Jake higher because Jake has a more entertaining character, unlike Marcus, who's like completely flat and is just there. Jake is like at least trying to do something, and he does have at least a small role with Duncan and like that thing. But yeah, that's fine. Let's see. For B rank, we got Sarah and Jesse. No, wait. Yeah, no. Yeah, Sarah and Andrew. Okay. These two are B because they're more important. Like, especially, they're really important to the story. Andrew's whole thing is he's the kind of the guy who facilitates Heather becoming a good person, because he's the only one who at least kind of tries to get to know her. Like the whole thing with Heather is Heather's the queen bee. She's the main antagonist of Total Drama Island, and so because of this, she sees Andrew at least trying to stick up for her, and once everyone kind of realizes what's going on with her family, Heather starts to change, and Andrew's kind of there. Oh, 1 second. Yeah, sorry. Been talking for a bit. Andrew is really, his main factor is the fact he's there to basically give Heather that chance to redeem herself. Heather actually is, I would probably say, has the best character arc of any of the characters in Alternate Island, which is kind of saying something, considering the fact that her character arc is just basically, she acts just like Ken and Heather, and then everyone kind of sees what her family like is like. Andrew's like the one that extends the olive branch, like, I'm willing to at least try to get to know you, at least befriend you. And Heather kind of goes through like a crisis of confidence of like this whole idea of that maybe her father's teaching is not what needed to be done. And that makes Andrew such a great character. The fact he kind of goes out like Lashana and Cannon with like everyone accidentally saying his name, kind of says a lot. The fact that they kind of had to do it that way. Sarah's there mainly for Laura. Sarah is a very kind of like a pop singer sort of character. She's as big as Lindsay but actually has smarts. She has a whole character arc where she's trying to learn how that she's actually lesbian, when she falls in love with Laura. There's a whole part in the talent show contest where she sings Vanessa Carlton's 1,000 Miles. However, past her whole connection with Laura, there's not really a lot going on with her. This is kind of the problem with Sarah, is the fact her entire character is kind of centered specifically on another character. So like a satellite love interest. She's good for what she's doing. Like, it's good for helping Laura grow as a character, and she does grow as a character because she's kind of the one that because character, while Andrew's the one that extends the olive branch, Heather's full becoming a good guy doesn't officially start until Sarah comes back and basically forgives her for saving Laura, and Heather realizing what she did, because in the story, Heather, instead of Harold being the one to lock the pick and stuff and kind of load the votes to screw over Duncan, what happens is Heather picks the lock, stuffs a bunch of letters in the vote box to eliminate Sarah, and that completely destroys Laura. And Heather actually, I don't know why I'm burping. And Heather has like a very, very introspective move when she realizes that what she did was completely horrible, and that specific point is basically the start of her becoming a good guy. But it still takes a while to get there before it actually starts. It officially starts in the Dead Rising challenge, and then there's a whole thing with go away. And then there's a whole thing where Sarah forgives her, and that's when it officially kicks off with Sarah forgiving Heather for what she did, and Heather basically having to earn Sarah's forgiveness. It was a really touching moment, but again, there's only so much you can do with Sarah's character because she's so connected, because her whole character is completely connected to Laura, which gives us the last three on the A rank. Oh, Puppy Smiles is gonna be alone. Jesse, Laura, and Michael, all A rank. Oh boy. Let's talk about Jesse, because out of all of them, Jesse's probably the most important. And to explain Jesse's character, I have to actually talk about the actual events of Total Drama Island. So, in episode 1 of Total Drama Island, Ezekiel gets eliminated because he inadvertently says a sexist remark about how women should stay in the kitchen and men have to stay out and work. And that rubbed everyone the wrong way, hence why he got eliminated first. What happens is, in this story, since Jesse is a psychologist, Jesse manages to take Ezekiel aside and kind of talk to him. And basically, like, why did you say that? And it turns out, in this story, Ezekiel comes from a very, very sheltered family, and he learned all that sort of sexist attitude specifically from his mother, who who forced him to watch a lot of soap operas, which always had the women being in the kitchen, being the servitude thing, while the men goes out to work. So in that story, he actually has an excuse, which kicks off the chain reaction of all the events happening differently. And what happens is Jesse manages to convince everyone to not vote off Ezekiel, because he managed to convince them that what he did was just very, very, yes, it was sexist, but it was a legitimate accident that was owed specifically to his upbringing. And again, it wasn't his father, it was his mother, and more specifically, the soap operas that she forced to have him watch. Which kind of installed that idea into him, which eventually led to in episode 1 of Courtney being eliminated, and then, eventually Courtney becoming the main villain of Total Alternate Island. But past that, Jessie is a very important character. She plays a big critical role in establishing how threatening Courtney is when she comes back. She falls in love with eventual winner Harold, and basically helps out with his character arc. She helps out with Duncan's character arc, with Ezekiel's character arc. Like, she actually becomes good friends with Ezekiel, like teaching him about like the modern day and getting him to grow out. And she's just a very enjoyable character. Now let's move on to Michael. Oh boy, Michael is the mysterious one. Like I said, he was the only intern that's actually important to the story because of Gwen's specific plotline in that story. Because Gwen was stalked by a teacher who was very much a pedophile, and Michael attacked him, and that led to Michael going to jail. And that gives him this very fearsome reputation throughout the entire story of literally all the campers being piss poor terrified. Like even Chef is like kind of nervous around the guy because like, yeah, it's like, yeah, I still like you. And apparently the fact that they actually knew each other, kind of sort of implied. Granted, Chef had no connection with Paula because Paula was in the military and Chef was her superior officer. But Michael was a close second to Chef because Chef at least heard of it. It's implied that Chef at least heard of Michael, but he never really found out what's wrong with him. And so that's like a big storyline of Michael having this threatening aura around him, everyone being afraid of Michael, and trying to find out what's wrong, what made him go to jail, and like a big part of that main plot line is them trying to find out. That's when it kicks into overdrive with the main plot, is once you actually get the clues over what happened with Michael, and that eventually leads to like the events that caused Courtney's elimination. So Michael plays a very, very heavy role in the story. And finally, we got little Laura. She's a very shy girl. She's painting. She actually joined Total Drama in the story because she was bullied for being lesbian, and she had like a very, very fun arc. She was very shy. She befriended Izzy, and then she fell in love with Laura. And then they eventually hook up. And then what happens when Heather eliminates Sarah is Laura goes completely off the deep end. She starts separating herself from everyone. She acts feral because because Izzy taught her a lot of stuff. Like, you gotta bark at the moon. You gotta gain confidence. It's a very much an underdog story. And I actually like the twist at the end where it's in the finale, it's her versus Harold, and Harold wins because I can't remember how Harold won. Oh, because Andrew and Heather wanted to help out Harold because Heather wanted to befriend. No, Heather, they were working with Laura. Never mind. And then Laura is basically and of course there's Laura befriending Heather, and that actually extended to the sequel where they actually became best friends and pen pals. Granted, the sequel kind of only had like one chapter before the author just gave up. You understand? I actually wanted to see how that second story went. But Laura had the most significant point of the character arc. Like, she had her specific character arc kind of conjoined with Heather's, which kind of also conjointly combined with the main plot line. She had the best character development. She had the best character arc besides Heather. And she was just an overall entertaining character. like I would seriously suggest reading Total Alternate Island. Uh, so yeah, there's like a bunch of OCs. My throat hurts, and it's actually almost 1 in the morning. I'm going to go to bed, and in the morning I'm probably gonna upload this. Like I said, I did this specifically on a lark. Though don't take it too seriously. If you want me to see you want me to do more, then just leave a comment and also like the video, subscribe to the channel. I will see you next time. Peace.